Hi everybody, welcome back. Glad you could tune in again. Something a little bit different this morning. If you think back over the last few weeks of devotions, you'll notice that a couple of themes have recurred on multiple occasions. The first theme has been to highlight things that are not as they ought to be, not as we would certainly want them to be as Christians, about the society in which we're living, about the world in which we're living, about our countries, about our governments, and so on. And the second, which has popped up in various different forms, have been some thoughts about how we as individuals and in our families and as a church community and perhaps as a wider set of church communities, how we could begin to contribute to turning the tide, or perhaps better, being the means by which God turns the tide of our decaying civilization, if that's not a melodramatic way of putting it. So these two themes, you might say, what's wrong with the world and what, by the grace of God, could we seek to do about it, have popped up here and there in the devotions and in other contexts in the last few weeks and months. And that's not been an accident. It's been certainly on my mind, and I know it's been on many of your minds as well. And perhaps particularly in recent months, we've seen more clearly more of the things that have been, certainly in the first category, things that are not as they ought to be about our world. And perhaps, like me, you've been thinking, can we get more concrete, more specific about the kind of long-term strategies, I guess, that we could and should adopt as Christians to seek to be God's instruments for renewal in our communities and beyond? And then just occasionally, you come across a book which encapsulates so much of what you've been wanting to say, and at the same time is so stimulating and so thought-provoking in suggesting ways forward, not just necessarily in the pages of the book itself, although the book I'm about to show you certainly does that, but in prompting other thoughts and being a fantastic stimulus for discussion. I discovered a book like that actually some time ago, and I reread it recently, and I would like to encourage you all to read it. The book is this one, Out of the Ashes by Anthony Esolen. I know that some of you will have come across Anthony Esolen's writing before. He is a tremendously gifted writer. And in this book, he turns his theological and literary skills to the task reflected in the subtitle of this book, Rebuilding American Culture. Well, there's an ambitious task, if ever there was one, and some of the back cover blurb, which I won't read for you, but you can find it yourself. I'm going to encourage you to get hold of a copy, and here's why. We are coming to the end of the book that we have been reading in our Thursday night theology book pub. Remember that? Yeah, we're still going. Some of you I know about it because we're meeting every week at the moment. Well, we're coming to the end of the current book we've been reading, which is fantastic. And what we're going to do next is going to be to read this one, but we're going to do it slightly differently. First, I really want to encourage all of you to get hold of this book and to read along and to participate. And second, to make that slightly easier, because I realise that many folks among us have time commitments which make a regular weekly meeting difficult to make. We're going to reduce the frequency slightly of those meetings when we meet to talk about this book. Every 2 weeks or perhaps every 3 weeks, we'll schedule it, hopefully at the kind of intervals which will make it more possible for all of us to participate, or at least for more of us to participate. And the third thing we're going to do is I'm going to enlist my dear friend, your pastor, Jeff Neal, to join me in co-leading this little series of conversations. We're going to do what we've done in a few other contexts, both face-to-face and also over Zoom. We're going to begin each session with a conversation between the two of us, just bouncing some questions and some thoughts around between us about a chapter or two of this book. And then we'll invite you all to participate, give any thoughts, any questions you want to ask. My hope is that that will make it easier for a larger group of people to contribute. If we just had a kind of discussion group, a book discussion group, then it is kind of difficult to do that with more than about 10 or 12 different little mini screens on the Zoom screen, so to speak. We've tried valiantly on Thursday nights and it's worked pretty well. But once it gets above a certain number, you realise it's kind of hard for us all to contribute. But this way, it won't be so much necessary to contribute. It will be more like participating in a somewhat interactive conversation. And I hope that you'll find it tremendously stimulating, tremendously encouraging. And also, I hope you'll find it inspiring. Because this book, it really does capture some very nitty-gritty, practical details, practical strategies, practical ideas that we could embrace in everything from thinking about how we raise our kids and how we educate them to how we eat together and the wider questions about how we speak, how we live in the world and so on and so forth. There's a huge amount in this book that we could all benefit from. I'm convinced of that. And I hope that it will lift our gaze slightly, fix our thoughts on some long-term goals that we could strive towards as a church community, and give us some short and medium-term strategies that we could be involved in right now to seek to drive, by God's grace, towards those goals. So I commend this to you. Please do consider, at least. Get yourself a copy. Out of the Ashes, Rebuilding American Culture by Anthony Esolen. It's available in all the usual places. The evening conversations will kick off probably in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. We might take a short break after the end of the current series of theology pub evenings. And we'll just meet 7 till 8:30 or so on either a Wednesday or a Thursday evening. We'll figure out the schedule at some point nearer the time. And please, 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 come along and join us. At least try it for the first one. See if you enjoy it, and I bet you will. I hope you'll be encouraged by it, and I'm sure you will be, as we seek to think about how we can really start to work practically towards playing our part in God's program to renew and transform His world. Okay, that'll do for now. The Lord bless you, and I hope very much to see you very soon. Bye for now.